Hello and welcome to episode 1150 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, almost 4. Joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, it's March. Draft season's here. What's going on?
Oh man, TGFBI drafts are in full swing. I posted the ADP on Fangraphs this morning. So you have a way of going looking at the first 150 players off the board in TGFBI, plus links to the automatic draft boards and stuff like that. So yeah, man, it's that time. We're getting close. Like I was thinking, man, I don't have that many drafts left. I mean, it's almost main event season.
That's the thing, man. We're going to get into the big dogs. You're running the listener leagues for the podcast. If you're in the Patreon, is there still spots for any of those?
At this point, the first two have filled up, but we could put together a few more if people jump into the Patreon. I'll jump in as many as people want to get because I don't think we're going to get like 15 or something like that.
I could jump into one more. I'm in the head-to-head. I could be down for another. So keep me posted on how things are filling there.
I really want to do a vampire league. If anybody really wants to do a vampire league,
explain what that is quickly.
So a vampire league is one person league is the vampire and does not draft, but puts this team together with what's left over on the waiver wire. And then you go head to head, obviously, each week. And if he wins, he steals someone from your active lineup from that week. So
were you around online and in the fantasy world when people used to kind of do this? It didn't have a name, but on Yahoo, we would do free agent only drafts. We'd purposely tank the draft all the biggest losers ever, then cut guys. And just a few of us, it was just kind of like it was not even like a set thing or anything like that. And I'm sure the people who were in our leagues were like, what's wrong with this a-hole, not drafting properly? But we would try to win via just picking up free agents in a 10 or 12 team Yahoo league. So same kind of vibe, but we couldn't steal players if we won. And some people actually won their leagues. I think there are people on Roto Junkie that were doing this way back when. It was a lot of fun. And there's a similar vibe. There's also the Guillotine League. You know what that is?
Yeah. I played in a Guillotine League for football. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. And then I got eliminated week 1. And I was like, oh, this sucks.
This is the thing ever. Do you want to explain what that is?
Yeah, Guillotine League. It's a points league typically. It's got to be a points league for baseball. But I did it for football. And the lowest score is out each week. So
they're done in the league.
Yeah, it's but it's a lot of fun if you get to survive more than 1 week.
Yes.
Danielle was in one for Bat Flips and Nerds, the British baseball podcast. They did one, and she made it to like the finals.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
because then all those guys go into the pool of the killed team.
They did it in an interesting way where it was randomly assigned who you got. So you would get an extra player each week and it was randomly assigned. And so she's like, every week, she's like, I need a reliever. And she would never get the reliever. Like at one point, she's got like 6 first basemen.
She's like, I'm good on first base.
I was like, I don't need any more of that. I just need a reliever. And then finally, like the last week of the season, she got Hader and it still wasn't enough for her to win.
Dang, that's cool that she made it really far, though. Those leagues are fun as well. So if people are interested in something that's a little bit non-standard with the Patreon league, let Justin know. I would definitely be in like a vampire guillotine 100%, but I'll join a second one if we've got people that are looking to get in there.
We got some people in the chat this morning, which is
nice. A great call by Henry.
He said, go ahead. Yeah, he came to the realization this morning, Paul nickname Cincinnati Coors Jr. and giant missed opportunity is Coors Light. Yep.
It's done. You win, Henry. It's Coors Light. Thank you. Yes. Coors Jr. Total waste there. It is absolutely Coors Light. And that's why, I've been hammering that all draft season with a lot of different hitters that I'm interested in. I tell you what, though, by the way, that segues us back into pitching here, which we're going to do our last episode of starting pitching review. I had to move down Green and Lodolo a bit. Yeah. And I might have mentioned this on another pod. Maybe I did on this. I've been doing pod appearances elsewhere too, so who knows where I said it. But as excited as I am about both, given how much I've been going crazy for Coors Light, I can't in good conscience not ding those two a little bit for it, just out of their own control even. It's not that I think they're going to get hammered there, but it's going to hit. There's going to be some downturn there. And I think I was just getting a little too aggressive on both of them. So both Lodolo and Green took a little bit of a dip. By the way, the rankings on the page under the fantasy expert rankings tab. We have now shifted over into draft season, which is March 1st through. It's all of March, and then in season will be April 1st and on. You can now see my updated ones, and you can compare them to the preseason, and then you can see what sort of changes I've made. So I'll have a big, robust change set coming next week, but I've already updated the starting pitchers with the Glasnow injury, the Musgrove injury. Musgrove, I didn't really do much. He moved down like a ranker.
I think I dropped him about 30 innings.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I only dropped him like 12, 15 innings.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what to do. Like he's not going to throw for 2 weeks. So
he dropped a kettlebell on his foot. That hurts me just to read it. By the way,
hurts me because I just drafted him in TGFBI.
You drafted because you had missed the news the day it happened. Glasnow, do we need to clear the track for you? Would you like to do your victory lap?
I mean, I hate like victory lapping on an injured guy.
I know.
I mean, I will because
that was the reason.
That was the reason. Like,
that's the only reason that you'd do that. You're not one of these people that likes when people get hurt or anything like that. We don't play that game.
Oh yeah, Danielle tried to give me a high five when Gavin Lux got hurt because she's like,
Danielle,
she's like, it's a Dodgers, screw them. I was like, I drafted him everywhere.
Yeah, I have him, and even if you didn't, that's still a real life player. I don't cheer real life player injuries. Even the assholes, I'll be like, I don't like that dude, but I don't cheer people getting hurt. But again, and you're not cheering Glasnow, but you were out. You thought everyone was going too crazy because of the injury risk, and it came to fruition instantly.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bummer for me because nobody drafted him in my main event.
Yeah, you didn't get to benefit on fading him when someone's taking him as the 20.
I get the call right, but I don't get the profit from it anyway anymore.
Yeah. But so there's already been news going on with stuff like that. Seiya Suzuki, our boy, oblique injury, probably going to eat up most of spring. Looking to probably eat up a couple weeks of the season, you would think, based on other obliques. We don't have a firm timetable on him. What are you doing with him? Because he's sinking like a rock. I told you my TGFBI this morning. He's available at 165. I didn't take him because I've got enough shares right now. If he comes back around at 195, which I guess if anybody in my league is listening, you better take him because I think I would take him at 195, which would be about a 90 pick dip. But what are you doing with Seiya Suzuki right now?
I mean, I don't know that you can draft him unless he really, really drops. So he dropped in Danielle's league. She got him around 190. And she was all like, she was asking me like, well, who do I take here? And I was all, Suzuki is a huge discount. You just got to be really careful with the rest of your draft in terms of not drafting anybody who's like injury prone or already injured.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like he's going to be out a super long time. And we still, 3 of those probably 4 to 6 weeks are part of spring training. So you're probably going to miss him for April. Oh,
yeah, it seems like basically, I'm not saying he's the same as this guy, but basically like the Tatis situation, right? Tatis missing 3 weeks guaranteed. Say Suzuki missing probably about 3 weeks of the season guaranteed. Different reason though, too, right? Of course, Tatis missing it because of his suspension, although he is also coming off of 412 surgeries. So I don't know. That's such a bummer, man. I love Suzuki. You do too. We hyped him up so much. And then to just be undercut right away with an injury that sucks too, because it can linger. That's the real tough part too.
Or you can get you can re-aggravate it and be out for even longer. His max pick is 190. His min pick, I think, was my league. Yeah, it was 97. So I don't know if the guy
before it happened.
No, so I don't know why. I don't know if the guy hadn't seen the injury or just said, I don't care, I'm getting the guy I want. But
I mean, I think I would put us among the highest in the industry on Seiya. And neither of us are going that high. So just because we're not doesn't mean nobody can. But I'm just saying I'm surprised that someone's still really willing to go that high on Seiya Suzuki. I love him. I'm rooting for him. But man, plus I have enough shares. That's the thing too. Yeah. If I wasn't already kind of covered, maybe I would still want to get him like at that 165 that I just bypassed him on. But I've got plenty of shares. So if I don't get a single other one and he comes back after 2-3 weeks and he's fine and pops off, I'm still going to quote unquote win on that. But I'm bummed. I'm absolutely bummed. You know what surprised me though is that Bryce Harper went and he did, and Seiya Suzuki's still out there. I would take Seiya Suzuki 100 times over Bryce Harper once. He's missing half the season,
At
And I don't,
least.
yeah, and I don't mean to blast Mr. Hubbard here in my league as I put his name out on Front Street, but I don't get it. I don't get it. Has he gone in any other leagues yet?
Yeah, his min is 135, his max is 255, but he's only been drafted in 8 of the 29 leagues.
That 135 might be my league. Oh no, that was 150. That was literally the last pick of the 10th round.
Yeah,
so
I think you're in league 10. This was in league 19. So
I
just can't. You can't in NFBC. You can't do this.
No.
Like in a Yahoo league where you've got IL stints and stuff like that, I guess it makes sense though. Those IL spots fill up quicker than you think, and then you're gonna have to make really awful decisions. But in NFBC, you can't hold a guy that long. I think often in these kind of leagues, it's people who aren't used to the NFBC format where you don't have the IL stints, and yeah. People are going. I think there's a guy in my league where I go, "Oh, I don't know if you've played enough NFBC, where like he's drafting way too many, injured guys or injury prone guys."
7 reserves, and that is it.
He hasn't gone in my league, and we're at pick 260. So
I'm not taking Harper.
I can't hold on to him.
There isn't really a price even. I'm talking even an absurd price like reserve round pick. I'm still not doing it. I don't want to give up a reserve pick for half the season at least, like you said. But we do still have pitching to talk about. We're going to continue on our rapid fire here. Let's start with some Pittsburgh guys. We're going to talk about 2 of them right now, and then another one a little bit later. Actually, we can move him up. We'll move him up as well. We'll compare the 2 that are a little bit more established, and then we'll talk about the young star. Roansy Contreras or Mitch Keller? Who do you like more? It's another Mitch Keller hype season. You buying into it, or are you on the Roansy Contreras train again this year?
I'm not really drafting either. They both have major flaws to their game, and they pitch for Pittsburgh. So, like, that's another red flag already because you're just not going to win a ton of games. And then, Roansy, like, I love the upside, but he had a lot of blow up starts. I don't know if the whip's going to be really good. I think they'll finally leave him alone. Like at this point, they're just probably going to let him go. But then we don't. Yeah, then we don't know what he looks like if he, starts getting to 150, 160 innings. And is 150 probably the max? I just can't pay the price of where he's going. If he was going like 30, 40, 50 picks later, like I'd be like, oh, okay, now it's worth a gamble. But he's a guy that you're not going to want to drop, because of that.
True. I get that. That can be a challenge sometimes with young guys like that. Roansy Contreras going around pick 300. And there's still plenty of like intriguing guys going around there that I understand maybe not.
And that's the problem. Like there's like, it's not like starting pitching is so deep, 300, like there's still guys that are really interesting going around that point.
Keller's 100 picks later then. You mentioned that he has some flaws. You're certainly not wrong about that. But is that not, are some of those flaws not well covered with the price?
I mean, yeah, I guess they are. And it just feels like we're kicking the football with him. Like, with Charlie Brown just falling on his ass every year. Like, look at what Mitch Keller's doing in spring. And then he gets into the regular season and you're like, oh,
it hasn't been that long yet with the Keller hype train. I don't think. Like last year he had the big velo bump from the complex that he was working at. And we got excited about that. And, this year I think people kind of doubling down. Okay, is he working on something for some swing and miss? I don't know. I still like Keller, and I think around pick 400, I can get in there.
He's such a whip killer, though, man. Like he's got.
He certainly has been.
He's a career 157 whip. Like
which
last year was 140. Like in his quote breakout season last year, he had a 140 whip. Like he can't win games. Is the same issue with the Cincinnati guys, right? Can't win games because he's on a bad team and the whips aren't going to be good. Like that's 2 of the 4 categories.
This is what you would have said about Lucas Giolito coming into 2019, though. He had a 6.13 ERA, 148 WHIP. You know, he was terrible. Guys can make leaps. It doesn't always have to be like an incremental jump. It can be a leap. Now, if you don't believe that it's there for Mitch Keller, I get that. I'm not trying to say you have to believe that that's there. But obviously, people are drafting him, and if they have their hype for him, they're seeing a path where he gets away from that. He's better than anything that we've seen. And it certainly has to be the case there for Mitch Keller, because what we've seen thus far has been wildly unappealing with a 5 ERA, 157 WHIP. So I totally get that. You're laying off of those two. I understand. What about Luis Ortiz? Because he's kind of the next on the hype train. Doesn't have a guaranteed spot right now, at least not according to roster resource. He's not penciled in with Keller, Roansy, Rich Hill, Brubaker, and Vince Velasquez. So I actually agree with that, saying that Luis Ortiz doesn't have a spot. But can he get enough innings to matter this year for the Pirates? What do you think?
I think there's a reasonable chance he can get to like 150 innings, but how many of them are going to be in AAA? Like, I feel like he's going to get the Roansy treatment that Roansy Contreras got last year, which was, up for a month and then down for a month and up for 2 weeks and down for 2 weeks. And it's going to be so frustrating because you're going to like, oh, I'm going to put in my lineup on Sunday, and then Tuesday he's in the minor leagues and he's stuck in your lineup.
Yeah.
I like Luis Ortiz a lot. Like, I think he is going to be a really, really interesting guy. I mean, he's got 2+ pitches. And if he can get the control kind of down, I think Luis Ortiz could have like a breakout season. But even if he doesn't, he's not a guy who gives up a ton of home runs. So he could be Robbie Ray-ish, like a high strikeout, but a high
like old school Robbie Ray.
Old school Robbie Ray, but without the homers, because he's not a homer guy. So
yeah,
I like Luis Ortiz a lot, and I've been drafting him a lot in draft and hold leagues. But I think in regular fab leagues, I think he's a guy you pick up off the waiver wire.
Correct. I'm not drafting Luis Ortiz in those formats. I did draft him in draft and hold as well. I'm in for the full season. I'll figure it out when it comes to looking at him for when he gets called up, because I don't think he's going to win a spot out of camp. Someone could break down. There's always that factor. They don't have the sturdiest rotation right now, but I'll deal with that when it comes to it with Luis Ortiz. You know who I kind of like there is Johan Oviedo. They picked him up from St. Louis. I still have some intrigue in him. He's shown some stuff. He's only 25. He also doesn't have a guaranteed spot, but he's got 3 pitches. Command is an issue without a doubt, and we have to kind of see some improvements there. But I like Johan Oviedo, and I'll be keeping tabs on him as well. Pittsburgh, you're not dying to get multiple Pittsburgh guys or even really one necessarily, but I think they could have some intriguing pitching this year that's at least streamable.
I think they're going to be a better team than people think. Like, the top half of that offense.
You've been on that all season.
Yeah, they are not going to be the worst team in the National League, and I don't think they're even in the running for that. I think they're. The hard part is the Central is just a little bit more competitive this year. But I think they're better than the Reds.
It's high time that they start making some moves forward, though. They've been building that farm system for a while. It's time to see the fruits of that labor. They have some quality veterans. I think somebody like Carlos Santana is actually going to benefit a good bit from the shift changes. Andrew McCutcheon's coming back, so they have some veterans that are solid. I love Rodolfo Castro, O'Neill Cruz, everyone loves, Brian Reynolds, some decent pitching. Bednar's a legit closer. I agree, they should not lose 100 this year. Let's go talk about your club here with 3 different pitchers. First, a comparison. Who's the better buy between Sean Manaea or Alex Wood? By the way, I wrote this up before Sean Manaea was coming out blazing. You see his velo reports?
Yeah, and I think that's why it's Sean Manaea is you go, oh my God, because Manaea has been a guy that he can lose his mechanics, and that's what leads to kind of the inconsistency. But when his mechanics are on, he is a fantastic. I mean, we saw a no-hitter from him, right? Like, he's just a fantastic pitcher.
We've seen good seasons from him too.
Yeah, when he's mechanically right, like, things go well. And I like his delivery. I like his pitch mix. I love that he's going to San Francisco, in spite of the fact the defense behind him is atrocious. It is not gotten better. Like, spring training has been a nightmare. They had like 4 errors in the first game. Like, in Tyro Estrada, a regular had 2 of them.
No.
This is gonna be ugly for Giants pitching, but
he needs Manaea needs that velo then to strike everybody out, so that the ball's not in play.
And that's why I like Manaea better than the rest of the pack there as a draft prospect.
Yeah.
Because if that velo sticks at like 95, 96, he's the kind of guy who can get, back to like a 25% K rate. And then he starts becoming really, really interesting. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to be taking some gambles, but his price is starting to go up. He went, I think, inside the top 200 picks in my draft.
Oh,
I'm double checking it right now, but
already on the hype train with Manaea. I mean, I get it. He's a guy who's been good.
It was 232. So
okay, that's still probably higher than I would have anticipated.
Yeah,
for Manaea.
People are gonna get excited about him. So.
Well, part of it, San Francisco is already going to drum up some hype.
Yep.
Previous success and a velo report. I get
his
it.
min pick in NFBC is 238, and he went 232 in my TGFBI league. So that's gonna 238 is probably gonna become his ADP.
Okay, so that there is definitely hype brewing on Manaea. I get it. He is also my pick. Wood and Cobb, I like both, but I can't trust that defense, and I don't know if I can trust it with this next guy either. Is Ross Stripling underrated after a wonderful 2022? I think he's kind of been overlooked going at pick 293, but then we get back to the defense piece, and it's like, well, isn't he going to get burned by that? But what do you think of Ross Stripling going out to your club? We've been fans in the past, or I have. Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You've been a Stripling
guy. I was a huge Stripling guy when he was with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love him in San Francisco on my team. I do worry about that defense because we saw him really, one of the ways he made the gains he did last year was getting back to getting some balls on the ground and not letting so much in the air. The defense is the only part that scares me. I think he's going to be a really, really effective pitcher, but he's going to get quote unquote unlucky like Alex Cobb did last year.
Yep.
And part of that is going to be that Ross Stripling's defense is going to be so bad for him.
Yep.
And so I think for all the gains you give starting pitchers for the home park, you have to take away because of the defense. So you got to think of Oracle actually playing like a neutral park and not like a pitcher's park because the defense is going to give stuff back.
That's a good way to put it. And it's very unfortunate because it definitely does hit some of these guys that they have because they don't have a ton of swing and miss dudes.
You know what they should do is when they fire Kapler at the end of the season, they should hire Ron Washington.
How dare you fire Kapler before the season even starts? This defense is not his fault.
It's not. It's this is a defense put together by duct tape and crazy glue.
Let's talk about my favorite team now. This was coincidental that I went from a Giant to a Tiger, and I'm going to bring up the other Tigers that we had on the list as well here. What's year 2 in Detroit look like for Erod? Obviously, it was a tumultuous first season where he even had some off the field stuff where he kind of left the team for a while, injuries. But when he was pitching, he was kind of Erod. Now, he didn't have the gains that some of us thought he could have. I definitely believed that he could have some gains moving from Boston to Detroit, just as far as a park standpoint, maybe cut into that whip a little bit. But 4.05 ERA, 133 whip, that's Erod. He was basically that guy. Now, the Ks were way down. That kind of sucked. But it was a weird season. I'm willing to give him a bit of a pass on it and double back here, especially with where the price is at. I'm just not too worried about Erod's price outside the top 300. What do you think of him, Eduardo Rodriguez, year 2 with the Tigers?
So the velo is at about 92, which is where he finished last season. So that's a good sign because usually guys gain a tick or two kind of as the season goes on. And we want to see him closer to like 93, 94, I think. Mm-hmm. And I'm willing to give him a pass for last year, whether it was marital issues or mental health issues. It was something going on off the field that made him walk away from baseball when he just signed his biggest deal that he's probably going to get in his career. So, and there've been a lot of reports in Detroit that if Eduardo Rodriguez has a fantastic season, if he bounces back, that he's going to opt out. And so this is a quote unquote contract year for him because if he pitches well enough, he could opt out and try to go get another big contract somewhere.
That'd be crazy.
MLB is going to turn the NBA where everybody's opting out every year. Which, good for them. They're getting some money. But,
get your bread.
That's a conversation for a different podcast. But I like him where he's going. This is a guy who was being drafted, not by me, but being drafted by some people as like an SP2 last year.
It was high. It wasn't even me though either. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I liked him, but I did feel like Eduardo Rodriguez was going a bit too high last year.
But
And
even if Eduardo Rodriguez's ceiling is like getting to an SP4, you're still getting a pretty great discount right
I
now.
agree.
And I've been drafting him in a lot of places this year because I think you're going to know pretty quick whether or not he's right. Even if if you go back and watch kind of that first spring outing, like the command was an issue in the first inning, but then he got under control and was, fine in the second inning that he pitched and didn't walk anybody, got a strikeout, got out of the first, 2 innings that he threw clean. So yeah, I think I'm here for Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with the price. I will buy back in. I'll probably have a share or two of Erod. Matt Manning, does he still have upside? He had an interesting first appearance. You talked about it, how the Tigers brass was pumping it up, said, hey, we liked what he did, this, that, and the other. But then the results weren't really great, particularly with the velo and everything. So where are you right now on Matt Manning?
So yeah, I mean, the initial reports, like you said, were like, oh, he feels great. He was saying he felt great, like he felt like he had good command of his stuff, and then Mike Kerland tweeted out a screenshot of like his velo reports from Savant, and he was down like 3 miles an hour, pretty much like across the board. And I'm all, this is a guy who ended the year with an elbow injury, right? It's good that he's pitching and that he says he feels fine, but and then maybe this was a matter of like, hey, I'm not taking it full bore, but this scares me on Matt Manning, and I've already drafted him a bunch in drafted holds, and so I'm not drafting him anymore. And the leagues where I do end up with him, it's because I pick him up off the waiver wire.
Okay. I think that's fair. We saw flashes last year of Matt Manning's upside. I'm still intrigued by him. Of course, I'm a Tigers fan, so from the fandom standpoint, I'm in, and I still believe that there can be more. But we need to see a step this year. The 3.43, 1.17 ERA whip looks great in 63 innings last year. But when you look under the hood, you really throw a bucket of cold water on it. 4.45 Sierra tells you all you really need to know there. And he has a 9% swinging strike rate. So be careful there with Matt Manning. I agree that I'm probably not going to be drafting too much of him. We'll see how the rest of spring goes. I would be open to drafting this guy, though, Matt Boyd, returning to Detroit. I'm a Boyd boy, and I'm interested in seeing what Matthew Boyd can do in the return. And it's also his return to the rotation. Are you thinking Matthew Boyd can have a bounce back season?
It's so hard to know what Matthew Boyd is at this point. Like it's been so long since he's pitched any sort of meaningful innings at the major league level, but he did look good in the short stint that we did see him in 2022, kind of out of the pen for the Mariners. And it's a good park to pitch in.
A decent 80 innings in 2021.
Yeah, I think there's no reason for the Tigers not to let him just go and see what he can do, and then they can flip him at the deadline. So yeah, I like Matt Boyd as kind of a late pick, especially draft and hold, but even a guy that you use one of your last round picks on in a redraft league, a fab league, because you can drop him really quickly if it's not working out. But he's got huge upside. Another one of these guys who was being talked about as like an SP3, not that long ago.
Yeah, I agree with that on Matthew Boyd. I think there can be some viability there. We've seen swing and miss at times. We've seen good whip management. We've even seen some decent ERAs. The home runs came down in those 78 and 2/3. It's called the 80 innings of 2021. That's what I'm looking forward to, or looking for rather, is the home run suppression continuing. That's what's going to get me in on Matthew Boyd, particularly in like shower formats, 10s and 12s, where he's probably not going to get drafted. If I'm looking to pick him up off the wire, I want to make sure he's keeping the ball in the park before I go out on that waiver wire to pick up a Matthew Boyd. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed. Yeah. Better Washington buy as we stay with crummy teams, Josiah Gray or MacKenzie Gore?
Oh man, this one pulls at my heart because I love both guys. And I definitely want exposure to both in draft and holds, and so I have been drafting kind of both in draft and holds. But I'm pretty sure they start with a pretty rough schedule, and
they
so
suck.
yeah, and the Nationals are really, really bad, and like I could just I don't know how you're going to start either of them. So let's see, they have an opening series at the Braves, and then they go to Tampa Bay, or then they're home to Tampa for Tampa Bay, and then they go to Colorado. So like, are you starting them in the first 2 weeks? I don't think you are. So I think these are guys that, unless you are in a league where you can stash pretty easily, like you've got really deep benches, or a draft and hold league, like I don't think you draft them. I think you pick them up off the waiver wire.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think I could see either of them pop, right? Like there's a path for Gray or Gore, or maybe both, but I mean I doubt both. But one of them to really go off this year. I'm just wondering if either's going to get there.
Really good.
Gore's the one that I'm leaning toward, because speaking of home runs with Matthew Boyd, Josiah Gray laughs in the face of Matthew Boyd's former home run issues, because, oh my goodness, he just cannot keep the ball in the yard, for crying out loud. He's a 2.3 homer 9 over 219 MLB innings for Josiah Gray. Needs to figure out something there. But Gore, I still think there's a lot to like in that left-handed arm. And I would take him in draft and holds. And depending on how this spring goes, I think there's a reserve situation where I would be still interested in taking him in 15 teamers as well.
Yeah, I'm just like scrolling through their opening schedule, and like the first series where you actually feel like somewhat okay with potentially draft or using them is like mid-April, a home versus the Guardians.
Which even that, might be a little tough too. So that's not even a lock.
And so like you're gonna have to hold them on your roster for at least 2 weeks before you get to play them. And then if you don't feel confident with that, they finally get the Orioles like April 17th.
So it's Atlanta, Tampa Bay. Atlanta, Tampa Bay, at Colorado, at the Angels.
Yeah.
Those first 4 series.
And like I know people are like, well, the Angels aren't that good. The Angels are good when they're healthy and they're starting the year healthy.
Yeah,
like,
and it's not their hitting. I mean, it was their hitting last year when everybody
was hurt, but everybody's alive right now. Like maybe mid-season, the Angels are a team you attack after they trade Ohtani and Trout's out for a while. And
you're hitting on a good point though. When you're looking at your late picks and your reserves, I do think you start looking at the schedule right now, because these are guys that you're going to be churning on your roster anyway. And maybe you like Gore as a full season type of thing, or Gray's like one of your breakout picks, sure. But I would think about more of that early season utility and risk maybe not getting your guy there because you want somebody more viable early on. Now, we always say get your guys, right? So if that's your guy and you really think there's a breakout that you would even start Josiah Gray against Tampa Bay, then do you. But if he is more fringe and you're just taking guys there and you're not really married to anybody, I leverage the schedule, and I agree with looking at those first couple weeks. That's why I took Kyle Gibson, and then I never let him go. So that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely regret that.
Yeah, you didn't regret that at all. That didn't cost you like $1,700.
Shut up. His September literally cost me second place. Awesome. Better Boston buy. Brayan Bello, Tanner Houck, Garrett Whitlock. I don't even know if Houck's going to be in the rotation. I included him here because I know that there's like consideration. It seems like Whitlock is back to starting, like and committed.
Yeah.
But Houck toss up there. So stay tuned. I'm leaning no on him. But then Bello Whitlock is the real combo here, unless you believe Houck's going to get back into starting. But what do you think of that trio?
I think it's Whitlock. I think it's pretty easy because he's got a job. I think Bello's probably going to go down to AAA. I think Houck is probably going to be a middle reliever, kind of a multi-inning middle reliever. And Whitlock's in the rotation. So give me the guy who's got the job. He's shown some really interesting skills too.
Yeah.
I don't know how many innings we're actually going to get from him. How many times are they going to move him in the, back in the bullpen, back to the starter? I'm probably not drafting any of these guys, but if I'm gonna, it's Whitlock.
I'm open to drafting Whitlock. I hear you generally, but then I look at their rotation. I'm like, well, how often are they gonna be able to put him in there? Put Whitlock back in the bullpen, because it's Sale, Kluber, Pavetta, Paxton ahead of him. Like, they're going to be bringing Houck. I think there's a better chance that they're bringing Houck out to try to start, or bringing Bello up than pushing Whitlock back into the bullpen. So here's hoping. I do like him. I like Bello, and I like the way he finished last year. I think he is more of a waiver pickup, though, once he's called up, because, somebody gets hurt, which will probably happen. Those are 3 guys that are in their mid-30s, and Nick Pivetta, who is 30. I'm in once Bello gets called up, but I'm probably not drafting him.
And I may see if it's on TV, I may try to do a kind of early morning, early afternoon watch party in the Discord today. James Paxton is pitching today.
Ooh, okay.
So I just 10:05 Eastern, 10:05 Eastern, I think. So, or no, 10:05 my time.
10. I was gonna say, yeah, your time.
So 1:05 Eastern. So if you're in the Discord, I'm gonna see if I can try to stream that today and just kind of watch and see what happens. Because if Paxton is back to full velocity, they're gonna let him go. He's on a 1-year deal, I'm pretty sure. So.
There's no reason that they wouldn't just see what kind of innings they can get out of him. I'm pulling for him, man. I like James Paxton. He was a lot of fun when he was kind of at his peak, which was brief, but there's certainly upside there, and he's a lot of fun to watch. So go Paxton. Let's move over to the Mets and talk about their duo of guys. Cardinals first. Adam Wainwright, Steven Matz. Who you like better? I know it's Matz, but tell us why you still love Matz.
It was Wainwright until he was throwing like 78 miles an hour. And you're like, oh no.
He got that Grinky fastball in the spring.
Yeah, maybe that the end is near. I think it's Matz. Though both are very interesting because say what you want about Adam Wainwright. He's going to pitch. He's going to pitch a lot of innings.
Gets it done, man.
And he's going to get wins. And if you're win seeking late, like, I don't know if there's a better bet than Adam Wainwright, who's going to pitch 6 innings every game and is on one of the best teams in baseball with one of the best defenses behind him. So Steven Matz, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be really good. I was high on the hype train last year. It didn't work out because of injury. Right now he's healthy. I'll take the gamble late. He's one of those guys that if he gets hurt again, you just drop him real quick and go to the next guy.
And that's the thing, like when you do have a breakout pick that flops because of injury, it's one thing versus if the talent just wasn't there. And then you're like, well, I might have misdiagnosed his abilities here. But with Matz, pick 330, you can take the shot again. If it doesn't work, you're out early. But I agree with you on Waino. I agree with you on both. I'm intrigued, and they're on a great team. And I think late, you start to maybe, is the upside of Keller and Roansy maybe a bit higher? Perhaps. But not necessarily like so much so that I wouldn't rather just have the guy on the better team take the little bit less upside because their defense and bullpen are going to support them more anyway. So if the raw talent of Roansy is better than Matz, sure. But what about the factors around them might just make Matz better. All right, now we go to the Mets. Better sixth starter by here, Tylor Megill or David Peterson. Obviously, they have a rotation that's pretty well set right now. However, it is ancient. 40, 39, 30, that's the baby. Kota Senga is the baby. 36 and 34 are the ages of their starters. Verlander, Scherzer, Senga, Carrasco, Quintana, which puts Megill and Peterson on the outside looking in. Both will get opportunities this year just because that's how pitching is going to work when you're talking about it that old. Who do you like better between Peterson and Megill?
I mean, I like them both, but I trust Peterson more to stay healthy, and that's what it comes down to. Megill had a lot of injury issues last year. He never addressed them via surgery or anything like that. And so I'm much more optimistic about Peterson than I am Megill. So, I don't know that I'm drafting either, but I think they're both watch us guys because they're not in the rotation. But like you said, like this rotation has the cumulative age of a beer league softball team, not a major league rotation. Like this is a real problem. Like, and I hope none of them get hurt, especially because I have Max Scherzer on a number of teams, and Carlos Carrasco on a few teams as well. But I think they're both going to get opportunities during the season.
That's the thing. I think both will have their chances. Megill and Peterson. Definitely love them in draft and hold still. If you're still drafting the 50-round draft and holds, NL only, I think you take a shot. Especially if you got like a reserve round. But the 15-team, 12-team NFBC style where you have to put them on reserve, I'm not as inclined right now because they are both going to be starting on the outside looking in. And they might not even start in the majors to keep them on standard 5-6 innings pitching in the minors type of deal. So keep that in mind as well. Let's stay in that division. Talk about Michael Soroka. It's Michael now, by the way. No more Mike. Michael Soroka, is he being overlooked or is he just too damn injured? What do you think of a Soroka return?
Yeah, Soroka's the kind of guy you pick up off the waiver wire. I don't even think he's starting the year in the majors. I think either you're going to send him down to AAA. I think Ian Anderson wins that 5th starter role.
Well, let's bring him up then too. What do you think about Ian Anderson was somebody who had some juice last year. My dumbass took him. He was like my SP3 in my main for God's sakes.
So I appreciate you taking him from me. Because I had him as a top 40 starter last year. A lot of people did.
I really liked him, and it was bad. It was really rough. He could not get out of his own way. He went down to the minors, dealt with that, talked openly about how he didn't like that, but understood, it was one of those where it's like, I hated it, but I understood why I got sent out because I was not making the grade on a quality team in the bigs. Went down, didn't really fix his problems though either. 5.40, 1.62 ERA whip in his 22 innings in the minors as well for Ian Anderson. Apparently reworking some things this year. Are you back in on Ian Anderson? You think he can get that 5th starter's role, of course, but are you back on drafting him because he's dirt cheap now?
Well, he gave up 2 home runs in his first spring start, so things aren't starting on a really good foot. I think he's a draft and hold kind of really deep. I don't even know if he's a draft and hold target. I think he's like last guy on your bench in a 15-team league or NL only. You want to be able to drop him off your roster, I think. So maybe he's not a draft and hold target. So
I could still get on draft and hold though.
Yeah, I think at this point you're just banking that he can find some sort of lost, skills that because we drafted him as an SP3 last year, that means like he could get back to that. But I don't know that there's anything yet in the profile that says he's going to.
Yeah. And maybe Ian Anderson was simply just overdrafted last year and we're anchoring to that and we shouldn't be. It was a solid season in 2021. However, there were warning signs. 10% walk rate, 4.38 Sierra against the 3.58 ERA. It's not that I didn't see those warning signs. I thought he'd improve, right? I was buying into the fact that Ian Anderson could get better. Instead, he went the other way with it and kind of had similar Sierra at 4.58, 20 points higher. And the skills remained problematic, particularly with the control being an issue for Ian Anderson. So keep an eye on Soroka and Anderson. They're both interesting, but right now I'm not rushing out to draft either of them. Does Braxton Garrett have a job in Miami? He had a really interesting season last year. Lots to like, but is there any room at the end, especially with Cueto coming in? That's Alcantara, Cueto, Luzardo, Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers. And it feels like unless they go 6-man, that Braxton Garrett is on the outside looking in. What say you?
I think you just nailed it. Unless they go 6-man rotation, I think he's the odd man out. Or they trade someone. There's been talk about them trading.
Still be a trade.
Trevor Rogers all offseason. And they have not traded him. Trevor Rogers looked good in his first spring start. So is there a chance we see Trevor Rogers be traded to a team like, hey, who's an up-and-coming team that needs another rotation piece? Like Arizona? We've seen them work together on a deal before.
Yeah.
I wonder if that is the way Braxton Garrett can get into the rotation, because unless they go 6-man or trade someone, I just don't see it. Trevor Rogers for Alec Thomas?
I was going to say Jake McCarthy.
Or Jake McCarthy, yeah.
Because Alec Thomas, is more of a true center fielder, and I don't know that they would do that. I think they would want a little bit more. That said, I think there's a fit there from a team standpoint in Miami needing offense. But outfield's kind of like what they have. De La Cruz, Jazz is out there now, Jesus Sanchez, and then the 2 oldies with Abasal. And, Soler's DH.
All right, here you go. Trevor Rogers for Nolan Gorman.
Now there's something that would be something.
Gorman is blocked in St. Louis. It's clear with the Marlins moves right now and playing Joey Wendell at shortstop, they don't care about defense. So
wait,
here you go.
Do you move Arise back over to first and then Gorman at second? Because Gene Segura's at third.
Or you just designate hit Gorman. Well, Gorman started as a third baseman. I guess you could.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But then, so then Segura back to second, which would still put Arise at first, and Garrett Cooper on the outside looking in. There could be something there. There could be something there. I don't know.
You just mix and match and move Arise all around, like, you know.
That's the thing too. Yeah, they can just move guys around for sure.
Still doesn't give them a shortstop, but okay.
No, that's the problem. That maybe they'd be looking for that specifically. But shortstops are hard to come by, man. When you got someone that can actually pick it, it's hard to give them up, even as a backup, because if something happens to Gavin Lux and you got Miguel Rojas. Too bad they didn't have Miguel Rojas. Oh wait, they did have Miguel Rojas. I don't know why they got rid of him. I still don't really understand that.
I don't either.
Without a shortstop to back him up, I don't think Miguel Rojas is like some stud, but when you're
a really good defender,
and great clubhouse presence from all reports. So it's like you got a guy who can actually pick it, and you don't have any other shortstops. I don't know why they got rid of him.
And Henry in the chat, the Mets 30-year-old rookie is 4 years younger than the next starter in the rotation.
30-year-old rookie. That's absolutely.
It just made me laugh, so I went back to it.
I love it. Let's go to San Diego. They're looking at maybe making 2 RP to SP conversions, and I got to be interested. I got to be honest. I'm interested in both. Nick Martinez and Seth Lugo. Who's your favorite of this RP to SP conversion situation in San Diego?
I think it's Nick Martinez because we've seen him start recently. Seth Lugo. I really liked him potentially as a starter, and was always really bummed that he could never find a starting role in New York. But it has been a while. He has not thrown 100 innings in a season since 2018. And he hasn't started a game since the shortened 2020 season. So
he is 33 though. So it's not one of those things where I think that they'd have to like baby him. Think about that time when CJ Wilson came out of the bullpen and was relieving. It was like, oh wow, or was starting. I was like, what's this going to be like? And he threw 204 innings after throwing 74 the year before. So it's these veterans, sometimes they can make the conversion and pile up the innings.
Yeah. So I'm interested in both. I think I'm a little bit more interested, like I said, in Nick Martinez. But at this point, now that they've lost Joe Musgrove, they need both these guys to start the season. So both these guys are definitely in the rotation to start the year, because while we've talked about San Diego being this like monster team, losing Musgrove hurts. They go from
massive.
Yeah, they go from Michael Wacha being like their 4th, 5th starter to Michael Wacha being their 3rd starter behind an inconsistent and often injury-prone Blake Snell and Yu Darvish, who's amazing, but somehow got like a 5-year contract at the age of like 90. Like I
love Yu Darvish. Get your money, but holy shit, that's wild. That's wild to me. That's wild. I'm with you on Nick Martinez. I will keep tabs on Seth Lugo, and if he has a nice spring, I could see myself drafting him later. But yeah, I really do like Nick Martinez and definitely think that there's some real upside there. He has some nasty stuff. And if he can, kind of figure it out for 5 innings at a time, I think there could be a decent starter there for sure in San Diego. Let's go to Baltimore. Speaking of the devil from earlier, Kyle Gibson's out there. So is Cole Irvin. Normally, when you're sending some like finesse guys out to Baltimore, it is the most stay away in the history of stayaways. With their new park, things are changing a little bit. This is a park upgrade for Gibson going from Philly to Baltimore, and it's not as bad of a park downgrade for Cole Irvin going from Oakland to Baltimore now. What do you think of these two? They're obviously super deep. They're deep league considerations at best, but what do you think of Cole Irvin and your boy Kyle Gibson?
I mean, you couldn't ask for a better situation for both of them, because now, Cole Irvin already had the good park in Oakland, like you mentioned, but now he's got a team behind him that might actually win some games, because I think Oakland could lose the most amount of games in Major League history. And I don't even know what that number is, but they could with the way this team is shaping up. So, like,
I'm going to double down, by the way. They're good. They're
not going to be as bad.
Yep. I was on it last year. I was like, they don't bottom out. They haven't lost 100 in like 15 years or whatever. You're like, no. They're bad. You were right. But I'm doubling back down. Yes, 1979 was the last time they'd lost 100. I was like, this team doesn't usually all the way bottom out. Well, they did. They're bad again this year, but I think they're playing a lot more youth, and I don't think they're going to lose 100.
We get to Vegas. I'm going to bet on that over under again. I'm just going to roll it. I'm going to roll my winnings from last year over on it.
All right.
So, I'm more interested in Irvin just because his whips tend to be better, but I'm not out on Kyle Gibson, and I'm pretty sure they start with a pretty decent schedule. Like, I think they get Oakland and Washington in their first, few weeks. So I know they get Washington for sure, but I'm pretty sure they get Oakland
Well, we
as
know
well.
that
So
we know they get Washington because we talked about it on the Gore situation, on the Gore Gray situation. Here's the thing though, they open at Boston and Texas, then they bring New York home, the Mets, or excuse me, the Yankees. Then they do get Oakland for 4, and then they get that Washington. It's only a 2-pack with Washington, so we'd have to get lucky for one of our guys to be involved in that. It is a pretty tough schedule. It's at Boston, at Texas, home to the Yankees, Oakland, at the White Sox, Washington, and then home to the Tigers, home to Boston, at the Tigers. It loosens up there at the end going into
Boston isn't as scary as it used to be. Texas is a good place to go on the road and pitch.
True.
Gibson's pitched there before. And
You're not scared of that Boston offense still?
I'm not as scared.
Okay, that's fair.
But
that's fair.
I mean,
it's not star-studded. It's not star-studded.
The second half of that lineup is not good. Like the top half is still interesting.
Okay. So it's not as scary. I agree. You've told me on that. It's not as scary. Especially, they could be dodging some of the bombs too. If the guy you draft, whether it's Irvin or Gibson, misses the New York series and gets Oakland instead, well, that's great. If they don't have to go to the White Sox and they get part of the Washington 2-pack, that's wonderful. They get Detroit in 7 games out of 10. They're each going to at least pitch in that series, in one of those series. So you're right. It does shape up a bit better there for Cole Irvin or Kyle Gibson, depending on who you like there. Maybe you can start mapping it out closer to the end of draft season, start mapping out the days to see exactly what they're going to get. I should have brought this up when we were talking San Francisco. I forgot to move him up too, but Kyle Harrison, very interesting prospect. Is he worth drafting? I think there's some real upside here. You guys have an aged rotation as well. Kyle Harrison going to throw some meaningful innings for the Giants this year. What do you think?
I think he probably will at some point, but I just don't know when they're going to be. And while he's got some really good stuff, he doesn't have great command and control yet. So I think there is a lot of risk. I think in draft and holds, he makes a little bit of sense. But really, it's leagues where you can stash him because the Giants rotation is pretty stacked at the moment. That can change in an instant because of their injury profiles. But they still have Descalfani as their 6-man or long reliever because there's no spot for him in the rotation right now. So he's Kyle Harrison's kind of the 7th man. And how many 7th mans are you drafting?
Not any.
Yeah. So
if I'm not drafting Megill and Peterson in an NFBC situation, I can't be drafting Kyle Harrison yet. But I am keeping tabs on him for sure.
Yeah. He's a Fabapalooza guy.
Yes, 100% agree there. Are we buying the Graham Ashcraft sleeper hype? He's apparently throwing 100-mile-an-hour sinkers. I know Eno's pretty big on him. Obviously, he has to deal with Coors Light. But what do we think of Graham Ashcraft in Cincinnati this year? He showed a few things last year. The skills weren't hot, though. 15% K rate, 8% swinging strike rate. But, again, those big power sinkers, is there enough there for Graham Ashcraft?
I like Graham Ashcraft, but are we okay with the defense that's behind him?
And the park.
I'm not as worried about the park because he's like a 65% ground ball guy. So
True.
He's gonna minimize the damage the park's gonna throw at him because he gets so many ground balls. But Jonathan India is not a very good defender. Spencer Steer is not a very good defender. They're going to be playing Tyler Stevenson a lot at first base. Is he a really good first baseman? This is kind of ugly, and I don't know that I want to deal with that.
I think that's fair,
especially with the lack of shift rules. And
with Graham Ashcraft, if you're going to give him positive for the fact that he can keep the ball in the yard because of all those ground balls, you have to account for the defense there. Kevin Newman should be fine at short. He's a decent defender. Yeah, but that's really it on the infield. I think you're right there. Will Myers is not bad at first, so he's going to play mostly first.
Oh yeah. Will Myers will play a lot of first. Yeah,
but you don't usually go crazy for the first baseman. You're looking up the middle and third base, and 2 out of those 3 are not so great with India and Steer. So I feel you on that. Could be an interesting streamer though. I think there could certainly be some of that vibe for Ashcraft, and he's not super expensive either, unless Eno pushes him up by calling him a top 20 pitcher or something. I don't think he has him that high though. I think it's actually top 100.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he's probably just inside the top 100.
Let's finish with some prospects here. Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, or Ryan Pepiot. Do any of those Dodgers have meaningful innings, because we've talked about this throughout the offseason. They're having a bit of a prospect wave this year. They're really leaning on some youth, and obviously with the Lux injury, that's only going to add to it on the offensive side there. Although actually maybe not, because Rojas is probably just going to take that job unless they find somebody. But on the pitching side, it's not as deep as it's been. There's some sketchiness after Kershaw and Urias with Gonsolin, Syndergaard, and May. So they got some young guys that could really be meaningful this year. Do you like any of Bobby Miller, Gavin Stone, or Ryan Pepiot?
I like Gavin Stone and Ryan Pepiot. I like Bobby Miller too. I just think he's 8th in the pecking order, and so I just don't know if and when he comes up. I mean, I guess he could fairly easily like maybe leapfrog Pepiot or get some, but Pepiot's got some major league time and looked really good. Gavin Stone, like, I mean, look at the strikeout rates in 35% strikeout rates in 2022 in single or double A and triple A. Like all three of these guys are really interesting, and they will find their way into the rotation at some point. They might all be there together at some point.
Could be,
considering, like you mentioned, all the injury risk that is involved in that Dodger rotation. I don't know that I'm drafting any of them, but I'm definitely watching the waiver wire in case somebody gets hurt.
I like Pepiot's stuff. I think he's going to be a reliever for them, and I think he could be a pretty high impact reliever. Maybe matriculating his way over to the 9th. I don't know. I'm an Evan Phillips guy, though, so we'll see on that. By the way, Daniel Hudson already hurt. Huge surprise. Alex Reyes not going to be there until the middle of the season. Huge surprise. So we'll see what they do at closer. But with Stone and Miller, I wrote them up for my prospect redraft article. And they're really interesting because they're kind of different. Bobby Miller's that power prospect, big time power arm, more finesse with Stone, but still plenty of swing and miss. And when I say finesse, I don't mean that he throws like Kyle Hendricks. I just mean that he doesn't come up throwing that blazing upper 90s fastball, but he did add velo to where he's sitting 93, 96, which does give him some more viability there to go with the brilliant changeup that he has, whereas Miller is more of a high 90s guy and just kind of that lays the foundation for everything that he does. So I'm intrigued by this group. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least give a passing mention to Michael Grove, who could also maybe make some impact. Andre Jackson as well. But I'm really interested in Miller and Stone this year, and I think that they could, one or both, could really make an impact depending on how injured that rotation gets. Pepiot, though, I just don't think he has the command to start. So I really think he's more of a reliever, but like I said, it could be an impact reliever.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like all these guys, but I just don't know that you draft them outside of
draft and hold.
A draft and hold, yeah.
Completely agree there. These are a lot of the guys that we talked about today are really to be keeping an eye on. Either if you have a deep reserve, which in NFBC we don't. That's why we keep mentioning that specifically. But if you have a deeper reserve where you're getting 10, 12 reserves plus IL spots, sure, take some of these dudes. Or draft and hold where you're drafting all 50 of your guys at once. Otherwise, you're looking at these guys for waiver pickups, and you want to know the names ahead of time so you're not scrambling the week that they come up like, who is this? What's going on? You lay the foundation of your knowledge right now, and that way when they come up, you know what to do. But that's going to do it. 5-episode pitcher preview. We went really deep there. If we missed anybody that you guys really wanted to hear our thoughts on, go ahead, put them in the comments of this post or hit us up on Twitter at Spore, at Justin Mason, FWFB. Justin, what do you got on tap for the weekend? Just drafting and hanging out?
I don't think I'm drafting anything. I think I'm watching the kids while Danielle drafts, which is just a weird turn of events. But
deserved.
John Legeza and I are going to go mano a mano on the Sunday episode of Sleeper in the Bust.
Let's go.
Because Jason's out of town, and it's just maybe go to Home Depot, Bed Bath & Beyond if we have time.
Great reference, great reference. All right, man. Well, I hope you have a good one, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Take it easy.